All right, back on the Young Turks. Jane Huger, Wes Clark with you. Now, I want to go to a little bit of politics. The Republicans have a vision for the country, and they say if they win, they're going to execute that vision. One of the so-called young guns of the Republicans is McCarthy, and it's maybe appropriately named. He's the third young gun, the one you're not sure why he's in the group, except for the fact that there had to be three, right? And somebody already made a parody about that. But he was on PBS, and they asked him, hey, Representative McCarthy, you know, what would you cut, right? It's a very fair question. Let's listen to the answer. Clip number 2.
Members of your own caucus have said, don't worry, Social Security's not on the table, military spending's not on the table, and Medicare's not on the table. Well, if you take those three and you say, we're walling them off, it's hard to imagine what you could cut to get us to balance at some point in the future.
Not really.
Well, give me some examples.
I'll give you an example. Anybody that rides a first class ticket on Amtrak, it's only 16%. But you know when you buy that sleeper car, the taxpayer spends $364 subsidizing your ticket so you could have your bed drawn down. Do you realize that people that represent a union and work for a federal government, they go out on their off time, on their time to work for the union? The federal government pays for that union work. That's another $120 million. Do you realize that we give economic aid, not humanitarian aid, to countries that have $50 billion or more in debt they own for us? Meaning that we're borrowing 40 cents out of the dollar from China to give them the millions of dollars. There are so many places we could go through one by one. And when we say to do this, do you realize discretionary spending that we're talking about yielding back grew 88% in the last 3 years? Why do you have 87 different programs for child nutrition? Couldn't you merge those together and get some savings? Business had to do this. Homes have to do this. If families are doing it, the government should learn to do it as well.
All right, so let's take those one by one. First of all, the first half was a total shot at the Democratic Party. Amtrak, everybody knows Joe Biden loves Amtrak, so he's like, let's cut Amtrak first, right? But, you know, that's the fairest one. You know, and there's a real argument to be made, hey, should we subsidize, you know, mass transportation like Amtrak? Fair enough, okay? It's a good debate to have, right? Union workers, you know, it depends on what he means by union workers. He made it seem like all union workers get money from the government. What are you talking about? I mean, there might be a specific area that he's referring to, but he didn't make it clear. He made it seem like all union workers get government money, which isn't even remotely true, right? So, but he's attacking all the Democratic interests. But then I found the latter half much more interesting. He says we should cut our foreign spending. Okay, great. I'm sure that Representative McCarthy, as soon as if the Republicans win the House, will introduce legislation to cut, you know, foreign spending to our the country we give the most amount of money to, Israel.
Yeah.
So he's saying to cut the money to Israel, right? That's what I'm hearing.
No, that's not what he's saying.
Really? Oh, they're not going to cut the money to Israel. Oh, that's weird, huh?
It's only $6 billion.
Yeah. So because that is the number one country that we give the most amount of foreign money to. And look, and it's a fair point what he's saying about, hey, we're borrowing from China at 40, you know, and we're paying X number of interest, and then we're giving it to Israel and other countries, and Egypt. And so are you going to cut it? They're not going to cut it. Of course they're not going to cut it. They might cut Botswana's funding, right? But that's a drop in the
they're not going to cut Israel's funding.
Right. So then the last thing that he mentioned specifically was child nutrition.
67 programs.
Yeah. I mean, come on, the kids, the ones that are hungry kids. I got tax cuts to give to the rich. You know, those guys, Eric Cantor was there, their proposal. I keep saying this because I'm blown away by it. They want the corporate tax rate to be 0%.
I love that he also says businesses learn to balance our budgets. Really?
Really? I didn't see that in 2008. I didn't see them with balanced budgets. I saw us giving them trillions of dollars.
Trillions.
Okay.
The thing is, look, people don't understand how much money is out there. People think somebody who's rich because they make $1 million a year. And that's rich for us. But these people are making like 80, 90, 100, 120 million dollars a year. I don't care who you are. There's no way you're legitimately producing that kind of value.
Yeah, look, that's a fair question. And one of the guys asking that question is Warren Buffett. Let's go to clip number 1 here. He's being interviewed, and he's going to say, hey, should we raise taxes for the rich? Of course. Well, listen, watch.
We certainly shouldn't raise taxes on anybody except the very rich. I think we should raise taxes on the very rich, and I think maybe we should cut taxes for the middle class, upper middle class, lower middle class.
Cut them more than the Bush tax cuts?
It could well be. I believe that in terms of we're taking in about 15 and a fraction percent of GDP and income in the United States. That isn't enough. We're going to have to get more money from somebody. Now the question is, do we get more money from the person that's going to serve me lunch today, or do we get it from me? I think we should get it from me. And I have a lower tax rate, counting payroll taxes, than anybody in my office, and I don't have a tax shelter. I just I just go take the form and fill out the numbers. And I think that's very wrong. And I think that if we're going to get money, and we're going to need money, I mean, we are not taking in enough money at the federal government level. And there's spending cuts to be done, I'm sure of that, but we need more revenue too. And there's only a few places to get it. You get it from corporations, or you get it from individuals. And there's, if we're going to get it from individuals, it shouldn't be the bottom 98%. It should be more from people at the top.
I mean, God bless his heart. Look, listen to what he's saying. He's saying right now, in what the federal government gets is about 15% of GDP, right? That's historically low. He's like, we need to get more money to balance the budgets because we need some bare things like feeding kids who are starving, right? Like child nutrition programs, whatever else it might be that you think is a priority, absolute priority, right? And if we're going to get it from somebody, who should we get it from? Bottom 98 or the top 2%? I mean, how can you define that logic except for the Republicans who are saying, no, I'm going to give you those tax cuts.
But that's the logic they've been pushing through for 20 years. Look at why. I mean, I don't know if you ever. They don't do it in California, but in the South, they're always like, let's do everything as a sales tax. Mm-hmm. You know who sales tax screw?
The
poor people.
Of course, because this is a much higher percentage of their income that they pay. Now,
That's huge.
Speaking of that, look, what Warren Buffett is saying is, he's like, I don't need any loopholes. They cut the capital gains tax down to 15%, dividends down to 20%, okay? And dividends used to be 40%, whatever the top bracket was, right? So dividends are what Warren Buffett, you're just trading stocks, right? And then you get dividends from those stocks. Now he's paying...
Because you're not actually producing anything.
Right, but you get rewarded for that because it's a lower tax rate. He only pays 20%. He said this, and he's issued a challenge to other
That's less,
CEOs.
by the way, than any of you are getting in your income taxes.
Exactly right. And Warren Buffett's challenge to any of the other CEOs is, if any of you can prove that you pay higher taxes than your secretary, I'll give you, I think it's $100,000, okay? But nobody can prove that because your secretaries all have to pay more taxes than the richest people in the country, millionaires and billionaires.
If you're rich, you get tons of stuff for free anyway.
Yeah, let alone that.
I mean, beyond just the tax issue.
But guys, come on now. How much sense does that make? I mean, we've got a system that is so broken. And right now, the Republicans are on the verge of victory, okay?
I don't think they're on the verge of victory.
No, look, they're not going to take the Senate, but they've got a shot at the House, and they're certainly going to pick up seats, okay? And their proposal is, the rich don't have it good enough, that we need to give them more tax cuts. As people like Warren Buffett tell you, stop it. This is madness. Stop giving us tax cuts. I pay so much less than the person serving me lunch. Will you cut it out? We can't sustain it like this. But it's, but of course there are other people in that bracket, Koch brothers and all,
who feel like victims,
who say, oh no. And remember the guy who in an Obama town hall said, oh, I'm at work at a hedge fund and I feel like a piñata. And
dude, that guy, I mean, that he had the gall to act like a victim up there on a national stage with people who have actually suffered in this recession that his industry started.
There were other people in that town hall who said, I don't have a job anymore. I don't know how to pay. And there was somebody else who said, I'm back to making, bologna sandwiches for the kids. And somebody else said, I can't pay for the education for my kids. And this guy who runs a $7 billion hedge fund, who makes, I'm sure, many millions of dollars a year at least, gets up and says, will you stop, beating up on us, okay? Because you're not being kind enough to us. You're anti-business. And those are the guys that the Republicans represent. And putting them in charge, unless you're a billionaire, and even half the billionaires don't agree, unless you're a billionaire, you got to have your head examined.
No, but you understand, the Republican base, they don't see any of that. Because first of all, a lot of people think they're going to make it. and that they're going to move up. But the reality is only 1 in 30 Americans ever moves up from their social class they're born into. That's it. 3%, dude. Those aren't good odds. But nobody wants to hurt the super rich because they think, oh, maybe someday I'll be super rich. Dude, you won't. I mean,
and even if you were, do you really want to pay less taxes than the people who work underneath you? The people making 25, 35,000, you say, ha ha, I pay less. You pay more taxes than I do. That doesn't make any sense. It's crazy.
it's wrong.
It's just fun. It's fundamentally unfair among everything else. And by the way, somebody wrote in, a long-time listener of the show, member, et cetera, and said, hey, Cenk, I think he's from the island of Malta, actually. Yes, he was. I'm sorry, I've got your name somewhere in here, but I don't even know if you want your name out there. So, and he said, Cenk, as elections come, you seem to be more against the Republicans, and I'm troubled by that. I don't want you to be partisan. But look, it's not about being partisan. You know me, if you've been watching the show and you're a member, look, if the Democrats have it coming, I'm the first one to give it to them, right? But I can't tell you before an election, after an election, and in the middle of the year that in an effort to be balanced, that the Republicans are making sense when they're not. I mean, look at that clip we just played, right? And I said on Amtrak, that's a fair question, right? So of course they're not wrong on everything, right? If Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. In fact, I'll be honest with you. I look for things where I can say, okay, Republicans have a decent point on that one, right? Okay, but it's few and far between. And it's my job to tell you what I think is reality. And I could be wrong, but the way I see it and the way they say it and their proposals are crystal clear. They're wrong. I don't know if the Democrats are right. I certainly don't know that. But I know those guys aren't right.
I know they're not as wrong, but at the same time, look, all this happened when Bill Clinton was president.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it started under Reagan, but it finished under Clinton.
And look, there's a fair argument to be made. I have a slight disagreement with Bob Cesca, who's a great writer on Huffington Post. He's also does a top vlog for us on YouTube, and he wrote a great article. And I think we're going to do a little debate on this in the top vlog soon with him. And he's and he says, look, don't give me this neutrality crap. And the Republicans are much worse, and the Democrats are much better. I mean,
there's no doubt at all about that.
No, I get that, right? But I'm worried that there's some chance, and I'm not saying that's happening, but there's some chance that they're playing good cop, bad cop with us, right? So there's no question the Republicans are the bad cops. I'm worried that the Democrats are the quote-unquote good cops who are like, I can't believe how bad the Republicans hit you. Come here. It's
well,
going to be okay.
Look,
let's deregulate a couple of things, and it's going to be okay.
They are.
We'll call it a compromise.
Look at the image that you've been shown on TV for 20 years. I mean, Republicans, we're going to fix it. Democrats, they want to get rid of the military. No, they don't. I've never met a Democratic politician who goes, let's cut the military and put the money into education. Never seen it. Not once.
And by the way, to that point, Kevin McCarthy talked about discretionary spending. You know what's gone up the most over the last 10 years in discretionary spending? The Defense Department, of course. And those guys, there's no end to it. And what has Obama done? He did not stop the bleeding, as it were. He increased the amount by which the Defense Department's budget is increasing. So he went more than
Because he doesn't want to look weak.
Because he doesn't want to, quote-unquote, look weak. Plus, everybody gets rich off that, and everybody in Washington is ecstatic when you spend the money on defense contracts.
They totally are.
And so that's the issue. All right, when we come back, do the liberal bloggers and commentators, perhaps like us, do we have more power than we think? Interesting conversation. Come right back. Back on the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur and Malcolm X. Wes, God bless his heart, is right to be riled up. And if you thought I was riled up, I mean, but listen to what he's saying, right? So, and we were just talking during the break. Worse might be yet to come. But we're not going to do that again. So let's
not go there.
All right. So let's do a little Rick Sanchez, okay? Rick Sanchez, of course, came out on a radio program and said Jon Stewart was a bigot, and that basically the Jews run the media, right? It's an unfortunate thing to say. And then he's had to apologize. And he called Jon Stewart personally, and Jon Stewart actually is a super class act. Did a really nice story on him the next day. Now, he made fun of him a little bit. Of course, he had to, right? And he nailed it. Rick Sanchez is Michael Scott from The Office, okay? He means well, but he's kind of a dork, and he's like, and and he did montages of Sanchez behind the scenes and Michael Scott, and it was brilliant. But he said, look, the guy doesn't mean bad, right? And Sanchez is going to come out and talk about what he did on Good Morning America with George Stephanopoulos. Let's go to clip number 8 first.
Now I know this has not been the easiest week for you, but you're still smiling.
It's tough. I screwed up, George.
What happened on that radio show?
I was tired. I'd been working 14-hour days for like 2.5 months. I was doing 3 shows. I was exhausted. It was right after the air. My daughter had a softball game I desperately wanted to go to, and I was a little impatient. And I said some things that I shouldn't have said, and they were wrong. And they were not only were they wrong, they were offensive. And people who were offended by it, you know, deserve.
People thought they were anti-Semitic.
Yeah, deserve to know that, first of all, that's not what I meant. Second of all, I apologize, and it was wrong of me for me to be so careless and so inartful. But it happened, and I can't take it back. And you know what? Now I have to stand up and be responsible for it, just like I teach my kids.
All right, look, he's trying to make up for it, right? And I feel kind of bad for him, right? But at the same time, that softball game was the worst excuse I've ever heard. I had to go to a softball game for my daughter, so I just said the Jews run the meeting.
The Jews.
Okay, wait a minute. That doesn't make any kind of sense, right? So I don't and you're tired, so you might say some stupid things, or you might get worked up. We get worked up on the show, right? But you don't get worked up and all of a sudden say something that has never crossed your mind. You know, that doesn't make no kind of sense, right? And the word inartful is driving me crazy. Please stop saying that, okay? Just say, hey, you know what? And you know what I would have liked in the apology? And like, I think Stewart's right. I think that guy doesn't even mean bad, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel kind of bad for him. But what I would have liked in the apology is why he realizes it was wrong, or why it was a dumb thing to say.
Wait,
right?
but what was the dumb thing he said?
Well, so first of all, he said Jon Stewart grew up in a privileged life. His mom, he had a single mom who was a school teacher. There was nothing privileged about it. He was just calling him privileged because he's Jewish, right?
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right? And then he said people like Jon Stewart run the networks, and they're in a privileged position, et cetera, et cetera. The generalizations were over the top, okay? And so if you're saying, for example, you know, there are a lot of Jewish Americans who are in the media. Of course there are. Everybody knows that. That's not an interesting or controversial comment. But if you think there's a cabal and they're looking to keep Rick Sanchez down, that's cuckoo.
No, I don't think there's a cabal and they're looking to keep anyone down.
Yeah, that's crazy, right?
I mean, they might be looking to keep Rick Sanchez down now.
Well, now he might be in a little bit of trouble.
But last week, I don't think they cared.
No. So now let's go to clip number 11, and he's going to give credit to Jon Stewart as well.
CNN didn't screw up. Rick Sanchez screwed up. Rick Sanchez was inartful. Rick Sanchez said things that may have been offensive. Rick Sanchez unjustly accused Jon Stewart of being something he's not. I learned later that he's the classiest guy in the world when I called him, and I'm the one who needs to be in trouble. Okay. And if CNN ever takes me back, I'd be happy to go back.
You're a stand-up guy to come out and talk about it today, and I think I failed your quiz. What is it?
I still haven't figured it.
So it's 33
I still haven't figured it out. Thanks, George.
Okay, Rick,
don't worry
thanks
about
very
it.
Much.
All right. Well, first of all, I don't think anybody was blaming CNN, were they? So second of all, don't talk in the third person that much. Okay. Rick Sanchez was guilty. Rick Sanchez was the bad guy. Okay. All right.
That's how he's separating. Like, even now, he's not really taking responsibility. It was Rick Sanchez's
right.
fault. Not my fault. It's Rick Sanchez.
It was that guy, Rick Sanchez. And, you know, I just wish he'd say, look, you know, it was crazy to say that Stewart grew up in a life of privilege. To make that assumption, I don't care how tired I was. God, that was dumb. And here's what I mean. Here's what I was saying instead. Mm-hmm. At one point in the interview with Good Morning America, he said, look, I'm frustrated that there aren't more minorities. And so I had a chip on my shoulder about that in the media. And Stephanopoulos and went back and forth on that. And, you know, maybe focus on that frustration just as a way of saying, like, that's why I went in a direction I should have never gone. But if you notice, of course, in that, he's basically saying, CNN, please, please rehire. Right.
Yeah, he's totally saying that.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen either.
Right. But, you know, it'll be interesting to see what happens to Rick Sanchez down the road.
You mean, does he go to Fox or?
Where does he go next? No, he can't go to Fox. He's had bad blood with Fox. And he apparently had bad blood with MSNBC. So he's in a lot of trouble. If it's not CNN, I don't know who it is. So it'll be
Palestinian Broadcasting Network?
I don't know. Al Jazeera?
Maybe. Why not?
You never know. It's a crazy world. All right, Young Turks.
You to back it up and dump it.
All right, back on the Young Turks. More fun stories for you guys. It is the second hour, so we will be having a sex story now.
Yes. This is like my favorite story of the day, actually.
Yes.
First of all, Wes, do you know what dogging is?
Yes, I do.
You do know what dogging
Well,
is.
congratulations.
Okay, so what is dogging? I'm curious to see.
It's like a British thing where girls go to like a truck stop or something, and then they have sex with lots of people, right?
What the hell?
Am I wrong?
What
am
the
I
hell?
wrong or am I
How
right?
do you know?
No, you're right. But is this like something that's common and people know about, or am I just?
You got to understand, guys look at porn. So guys are aware of all these things in ways that girls may not be.
You know, I must be an amateur at this, you know, because I didn't know what
Amazingly,
dogging was.
though, and no irony intended, dogging is amateur porn.
Oh, is that right? Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right. So now, there's slightly varying definitions, right? So one of the things that they say is necessary for dogging is voyeurs, right?
Yes.
So you're having sex in public. That's number one. And then number two, there are people watching, okay? And it could be gay sex. It could be straight sex. And apparently there's a place in England where it is quite common.
Right, yes. So the New York Times wrote this feature on a town in England known as Puttenham. And
I bet they do when they're dogging, right? Yeah, a lot of Puttenham going on.
and this town is known for dogging, right?
Okay.
So
What a thing to be known for, you know, like, oh, we've got some great cheese we do up here, and then plus we're known for dogging. You know, people watch while people are, you know.
No, but this story is incredible because first of all, most of the residents of this town seem to have a very like laxed mindset toward it. They seem like, it's been happening for a while. Let them have sex in public. Let other people watch. They're all having fun. Who cares, right?
Right.
What's even more interesting is gay individuals do the dogging during the day and heterosexuals do it at night.
Yeah, no, that's
Interesting.
No, it's
Yeah.
fascinating. So, look, there's certain parts of town, like in the park, in the shrubbery, if you will. And so one of the things they're thinking of doing, if they want to make it less, is to cut the shrubbery. Like, that's one of the proposals for getting...
Give everyone a better view.
Well, that's true. Then you might have more
Okay,
dogging.
hold on. Let's talk about this picture for 1 second. So this is the actual place where the sex takes place,
Wait,
right?
you once or all the time?
All the time. Like this is
Right there.
Yes, this is one of the
What
known
is
sites.
that? What's that? Is
That's-
that cardboard?
No, it's a mat. It's a mat.
I don't
they're
wanna go
all-
on that
So there's
mat.
multiple people having sex on that
Yes.
specific mat?
But
Yeah.
what's better?
Oh, dude.
But what's better is the
Wash
gays.
that thing.
The gays have sex during the day on the mat, and then the straights have sex on it at night.
Right.
Why are the straights at night and the gays are
Dude,
during
why
the day?
can't? Well, I think maybe because the gay guys are, because they're guys.
So they're less
So anytime,
inhibited.
no, I'm just thinking any time of day. But with guys and girls, maybe,
Yeah, she wants the lights off. Maybe
Yeah.
something along those lines. But so there's a long tradition of this, and the reason that it developed, and it's kind of a heartwarming story in a lot of ways, is that gays were discriminated on, and so they would have to go, and do it in the bushes, etc. And this town was like, it's cool. It's cool. Go ahead, and they never bothered them. And
Can't the town get one more mattress? I mean,
well, look, obviously some people are enjoying the public nature of it at this point, right? Now it's no longer a necessity, now they're having fun, right? And the law, it's not even illegal, okay? The only way that they breach any law is if someone else sees it and is offended and reports them to the authorities. Otherwise, it's perfectly legal, okay? Now, that's kind of a tough thing because you don't know if
that's a
somebody...
tough thing.
Right. You don't know if somebody's going to be offended or not, but on the other hand, why are they in the middle of the bushes if they're offended? Why do they come all the way over to watch you have gay sex to get offended?
Maybe they were walking the dog.
And by the way, where does dogging come from? Two things. One, because people are doggedly watching you. Okay, like it's apparently like follow you around to make sure they watch you have sex. The other is because of these are the theories on where the words come from. Is because people say, "Oh, I'm going to walk the dog," and then they go have sex with John down the street.
I got to tell you, you ever live in New York?
Yes.
All right, I lived in New York City a couple blocks off Central Park. I had a dog. If I walked that dog at night, if you walk 10 feet into Central Park at night, there's guys fucking all over the place.
No way.
No, people say that.
No joke.
I've never seen
Like-
it. No, but look, it must be true.
my
First of all,
God.
you've seen it. Second of all, people say it
At
all the
first I'm
time.
like, God, what's going on over there? And I'm, whoa, I'm just going to bring the dog back. And, I didn't see anything.
So you weren't
continue.
technically dogging with your
I was
dog in
walking the
tow.
dog, and I caught some, every time I did it, there were people there.
Yeah, look, that's the thing, though, because the reason that that develops, whether it's in Central Park in New York or whether it's in Puttenham in England, is because they can't do it in their house. They can't, where some of them are in the closet married, some of them are at home with their parents, and they're not going to tell them they're gay and they brought their boyfriend over.
What about that British CNN journalist who got busted in Central Park a couple years ago? He could have afforded a place.
Well, then now at this point, though, it's just they're having fun.
They're just getting it.
Yeah, like
Yeah, all right.
there's an extra thrill with the public sex. That's why. But one last thing about the story about the town and how much I love this town. The older residents are more in favor of it because they're like, it's a tradition,
Right.
and they're hanging out at the pub and they're like, oh,
Because
why are you bothering
Because all the
people?
residents aren't getting any laid anymore, so they're like, I'd sure at least like to see it once in a while.
They're probably out there every once in a while. It's true. Whereas some of the younger residents are worried about their kids. It's within 400 meters of a school or something.
Mm-hmm.
Look. Yeah, if kids can see it, of course you got an issue, right? But why are the kids in the bushes? No. And so, as long as the kids are nowhere near it, I'm with the older
Yeah,
people.
dude,
in town.
you're a big fan of dogging.
Apparently. Although, that's interesting. So if you saw people having sex, would you stop and watch?
Yeah, depends.
I think almost certainly I would.
I probably would.
Right, like not in your situation, right? You go into Central Park.
I'm not into watching guys fuck. So.
Right, exactly.
But if it was guys and girls, I probably would have stuck around.
Right, like you walk into Central Park at night and there's two guys having sex. I'm going to go somewhere else, right? It's in the middle of the day and a guy and an attractive girl are having sex. Oh, that's fascinating.
I would watch.
Right, Anna?
No.
No?
I'd be way too embarrassed. Because then they would see me watching, and then I'd feel shy. I would totally run out of there.
So you're not a dogger?
No, I'm not a dogger.
No, you're not a dogger. Okay. Two women.
I gotta say, I'm not as into the two girls.
Yeah, I knew it. We've had this discussion
that's
before.
interesting.
He's in JR's.
Because what do you do? I mean, I'm not part of that.
What do you mean? What do you do? You dog it. Okay, you're a dogger. You watch.
Here's the thing.
You're Puttenham.
Here's the thing. With two girls, I wouldn't even really be into a threesome with two other girls because what's going to happen when I'm done?
Mm-hmm. Who cares?
See,
You're done.
I think. Look, if you're going to have sex with somebody, you got to get them off. If I'm having sex with two women, I'm not going to be able to get them both off.
I'm
going to be done. I'm going to make a sandwich. I'm going to feel selfish. Man,
you got a lot of issues.
I got a lot of issues.
Look. All right. First of all, try hard. Give it a shot for both of them, okay? And then, you know what? At some point, see yourself, and then, okay, then go grab a sandwich, man.
All right.
Come on. What is this guy's worrying too much? Okay. Ironically, out of all the people in the studio, the one guy who could have had sex with two girls is Wes. So, and probably did, and probably got
No,
bored
I
in the
never
middle.
did.
Oh,
I
you never did?
No.
Okay. This, we've talked about this in previous. Do you mind me mentioning it, or like?
I don't know what you're going to mention.
Okay, well, that's true. So too bad. So here it comes. Wes has probably been with more girls than the rest of us combined. So if anyone had a shot at doing any of this,
by the way, that was long. That was years and years and years and years and years.
I know we're all old guys at this point, but back in the day, you know what I'm saying? Glory days.
There were a couple.
What am I going to do with this guy? All right, what's next?
All right. A woman named Marnia Robinson, who writes for the Good Men Project, wrote this blog about how we can trick our minds into being happy with having sex with the same person for the rest of our lives.
Can I say instantly? Not buying it.
Oh, I know.
No, I want to hear the solution.
Her solution is, okay, first of all, we're biologically built to hit it and quit it, especially men, right? Because we want to pass our genes on. We want to have, the quick sexual relationship.
But we don't like diapers and house stuff. Okay.
Right, and we just want to move on. But what she's suggesting is don't allow yourself to have passionate sex all the time, right? Like, don't have sex with the intent to orgasm every single time. Like,
Dude, why have sex?
Because she says that if you have sex without wanting to orgasm every single time, that allows for more bonding. And if you bond more, bond more, that'll lead to a long-lasting, exciting relationship.
You know what this is? This is a chick coming up with some nonsense theories. Okay.
Yeah. Let's.
These
Is her husband quoted in that?
Yeah. Okay. Not having.
No.
It. Okay. Look. Let me explain something. Can you have great sex with your wife throughout your life? Of course you can. Of course. Right. That's not the issue. The issue is there something biological where you are attracted to, different women, right? Of course there is. It's indisputable, right? So the question is,
What are you looking at me for support, dude? I'm married. My wife is watching this. She's gonna no.
No way. No, I mean, other than Wes, obviously, right? So the question is, how do you reconcile that? And that's what we've been wrestling with for all of it, eternity, and because that's in our nature, etc. But her solution of let's cuddle more, and you don't even have to come.
She's also an advocate for nipple sucking.
Okay, that I could live with. Okay, I'm not opposed to nipple sucking. Okay, but I don't have anything wrong with cuddling. Cuddling's fantastic.
Right.
I'm schmoopy poopy as it gets, right? But does that turn you on more? Does that turn her on more, so that it seems like it's a new person, whether it's for the guy or for the girl? Oh, come on, come on. It's not a new person. You can still have great sex, but it's not a new person. So she's not keeping it real.
Dude, what's the point in having sex if you're not going to come? Sorry.
I mean,
really. I'm
Real
sure
quick.
women everywhere can be like it's probably like that more often than, but for guys, it's,
Yeah. No, there's a point. And if there isn't a point in doing it, it's not one of those things where life's a journey. Where you arrive is not important. No. Where you arrive is enormously important in this case. If it's a journey with a dead end, not interested. So
I agree.
We could not have not believed in that theory any more than we did. All right, let's take a quick break and come back.